Hey, welcome back. Now we're going to do Supreme Court blocks deportation of Venezuelans in Texas. Fox News. Subscribe, turn post notifications.
All right, here.
Shit. Hold on. All right, let's go.
All right, here with more on the legal fallout from the Supreme Court's order to halt deportation flights, former federal prosecutor and former acting ICE director, Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, thanks for coming in on this holiday weekend. Great to have you. Want to ask you right off the bat about this midnight Supreme Court decision and what this does to the administration's plans to deport these illegal immigrants. This has got to be a blow to the White House, no?
I wouldn't read that much into it. I think what's going on here is basically they're going to put a pause and maybe put some process in place for how to use the Alien Enemies Act. I don't think they're going to declare it improperly used or unconstitutional here. They're just probably going to put some steps in place to say you must do certain things under this to deport people, and they knew if people got deported beforehand, they wouldn't get that process. So my guess is it's going to move along, and the administration will still be able to use this. And the good news is it will provide some clarity as to how to use it, when it's appropriate, when it's not. That's my expectation. Obviously, I don't have any inside knowledge, but my expectation is they will be able to continue to use this, and this is just sort of a temporary bump in the road. And remember, these people, if they were going to be deported under that, they're still at least detained in ICE custody now, so keeping the American people safe in the interim.
Interesting enough, though, but that's not the reason why the Supreme Court blocked it. And he knows the reason the Supreme Court blocked it, because Trump made a decision with those migrants that were already over here, and just, and figured out that there are a lot of people in the process of that decision that weren't gang members at all. They keep on trying to say they were gang members, but there's hardly any evidence to back the fact that they were gang members. Some of them were. A good number of them were. Actually, I don't even think a good number of them were. When I looked at the statistics last time, I think it was most of them were unknown. 75% had no ties to gang members. So I think that's why they're blocking it. They want you to prove it. They want you to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you can invoke the Alien Act, that these people are actually gang members and a problem and a threat to our country. And that's definitely something that should be done. So they halted it to stop Trump's power thing that he's got going on. But let's keep going.
All right, well, we'll be keeping our eye on that one. We also saw some developments this week in Kilmar Garcia's deportation. The whole country is watching this case. An appeals court upheld a judge's order for the U.S. to facilitate his return from El Salvador while the administration seeks to keep him in the country over his alleged ties to MS-13. So what do you think happens now?
Well, what the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals did was basically say, send this back to the district court. We're not going to get involved in sort of how she interprets the way she manages her courtroom and conducts maybe discovery or fact findings on this issue, because a critical issue is, did the government do enough, or did they facilitate his return, or whatever the language they used? I think what's interesting about this, though, any way it breaks down, meaning they can't ultimately order the government to go into El Salvador and bring this person back. And their argument as a court will be, you have sort of this unfair power balance with El Salvador's, so they'll do whatever you want. But that's not the way foreign policy works, and that's not the court's role. But if the administration ultimately decides, or if he ends up coming back here, the funny thing is, his reasons for his removal being withheld, because remember, he was ordered removed by two courts finding he was a gang member, but it was withheld because El Salvador would have been too dangerous for him. Well, El Salvador, the good news is El Salvador is significantly safer now. It's in fact safer than the United States and the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And if he's not a gang member, as he claims, it's even more of a reason to deport him, because he would be even less danger there. So any way you slice this,
if he's not a gang member, that's even more of a reason to deport him? Because he left at the time when he filed the Court of Appeal during the time when it was bad down there. They cleaned it up, so you guys send him to an El Salvadorian prison off the strength of an alleged claim of being a gang member. And you're revoking his right to citizenship because the country's cleaner now. listen, I hear both sides of the argument, though. The other side is that he's a gang member who violated the law by being over here. He was given 2 court order of appeals by 2 different judges, which I looked into and I found that, but I even found the reason why they were revoked was because the judges both came to the same conclusions that that they both came to 2 different conclusions on what type of MS-13 he was. Even if he was part of MS-13 at all, right? You know what I mean? Like, because there's still the conversation of alleged. If they ruled, then it shouldn't be alleged anymore that 2 judges would say that he was part of MS-13. So the conversation is still up in the air. That's the weird part. I don't know, guys, man. I got a lot of questions, and I know why the entire country is watching, because if they deported a legal man or deported a man that was working towards citizenship, then it shows the fault in our immigration system, and it shows why so many people cross the border illegally, trying to figure out how to find a better life here. This is a very fascinating situation. It really is. Let's keep going.
He's not gonna be back in America, and he's no longer going to be the Democrats' Maryland man. And Donald Trump, just one last point, Donald Trump is right. The Democrats don't care about him. They are just fighting every deportation every step of the way, whether it's gang members or anyone else, because they want everyone to stay in the country or trying to thwart his plans.
Yeah.
No, that's bullshit. The Democrats are fighting against things like Joe Biden opening up a avenue for citizenship for people who want to come into the country. So the Haitians that came over here, who didn't come over here illegally, they came over here legally. They're revoking them being able to come over here, even though after that whole spat about them eating cats and dogs, you end up figuring out that they were actually helping build the communities in Ohio and build the community in Springfield, Ohio, and they were building a lot of the communities that they were going into. So you end up learning about it, and they're trying to fight against things like that. Yeah, they're going to fight you on every immigration case, and they should. There should be a due process for every person that comes over here as an immigrant. Like, what are they here illegally? Why are they here illegally? And are they gang members? And there should be a due process. Well, I thought we were the country of that. Why do we want to just deport people? I know white people just want this country to be all about them, but I mean, that's just not how it's going to go, man. You got to share. I'm sorry. And I understand truly why, the true reason why they want so many deportations is because they're afraid of the country being 50% black. Because if Hispanics, they would count Hispanics technically as black. But black technically isn't really black. It's just other. They don't want the country to be matched 50-50. Y'all can argue in the comment section about that, but I know we know that's what it is.
Yeah, it really seems that way. And, you hear President Trump say he is not coming back to this country. And it seems unclear if his wife even wants him back. She certainly couldn't answer the question when she was on another network. So, a lot still to unfold here. We'll be watching that one. I want to switch gears to the Trump administration's fight against Harvard. The Department of Homeland Security this week cutting $2.7 million in grants and threatening the school's ability to enroll international students if the Ivy League doesn't submit records on visa students. So how do you think this all plays out legally on both sides?
Well, there's a number of issues going on with Harvard right now. There's that issue with the foreign students. There's the issue of withholding federal funds and grants. There's the issue of Harvard's tax-exempt status that's at play here. And I think ultimately, Harvard is holding a hard line. And what was kind of striking about a statement they put out was, we don't have to listen to the government about how we run our schools, how we do admissions, how we do hiring. But the problem with what Harvard said there is they lost a Supreme Court case that found that they were discriminating against Asians and whites in the admission process. And if they're basically saying we don't have to follow that.
They added Asians in there so it just didn't have to strictly be seen towards whites. But the discrimination practice, it's interesting because when you actually go and you look into the DEI program that they were claiming, what got more people in, the school was still 80% white. It was still 80% white. I'm confused. I think it was 80-90% white. It was between that. It only brought in so many more black students and so many more Hispanic students and things like that. And now the majority of people that did pass, like a good number of people that passed the tuitions, were Asian students. Asian students got in too, but it wasn't as, like, if you look into it, it wasn't as discriminatory towards Asians as it was towards whites. And it was really like not that many people, man. It was like 80. I know it was like 80 to 90%. It was something like that, 80, 90%. Was still white. It's mind blowing. But he's denying federal funding for them to find. So now they have to give up visa students. Visa students. They have to give up. They have to give up DEI. Guys, I just want you guys to understand this. All the funding and stuff may be a different kind of conversation that I'm about to make, but definitely when we go into universities, you want to make universities the ability to be able to debate ideas. Whether you agree with critical, whether you agree or disagree with critical race theory, or you agree to disagree with feminism, the university should be the area where these things are debated. There shouldn't be a halt on people like learning from these things, but they're shifting those type of conversations into the conversation of visas, DEI, and DEI. Let's keep going.
I think they didn't feel like they had to follow it under the Biden administration. That's a problem, and the administration has a responsibility to find out if they're in fact following the Supreme Court's rule and not just sort of obfuscating the way they do their admissions. But on the foreign students, it's also something that's important, because if these foreign students are coming in and disrupting the school or promoting, foreign terrorist organizations or things like that, our Department of Homeland Security has a responsibility to make sure that's not happening and they're not coming in there, and that the students at Harvard are safe from people that are promoting, foreign terrorists. They shouldn't have to go to school with that. So there's a lot of issues at play, but Harvard looks like they want to fight a hard line on it, but I don't think they really have a moral standing on a lot of these issues, and the legal standing is quite iffy, particularly on this tax-exempt status, because the last time a university lost this was based on discrimination. It was Bob Jones University that outlawed interracial dating or forbid it, and they lost tax-exempt status. Harvard's case isn't as egregious, but if they don't adopt to the Supreme Court ruling, they may have, in fact, the same problem.
Yeah, and Harvard, I think international students make up about 27% of the Harvard population at $100,000 a pop. That's quite a bit of money. So we're going to see how this plays out. But thank you so much. Yeah, they are. Those kids are paying full price for sure. Thank you so much, Jonathan Fahey, for coming in today. Have a great weekend. Mm-hmm.
So keep in mind what they said. 27% of the international students are paying full price to come to Harvard, right? 27%. And you want to revoke people's visas to eliminate the type of people that are coming into Harvard. And you're hiding it within saying that they're promoting terrorist sentiments. So much racism in this administration, man. But it's hiding it in so many different words. It's hiding it in so many different areas. They don't want diversity in any way, shape, or form. They want a meritocracy where they know that if you remove the barriers, then the white people will only bring white people in. They know that. They know this. They know they're not going to hire blacks. They're not going to hire blacks. They're not going to hire Hispanics. Asians won't get in either. I don't care what they try to say. They're not going to do that. They're gonna make it more complicated, because those programs help Asians too, regardless of what they try to deflect from. But they help Asians too, and it just creates a safer argument because it affected more white people. But it affected more white people to where it really didn't. It just picked the most qualified. It moved the goalpost to pick who was more qualified. Diversity, equity, and inclusion program. That's what it is. If it was even that brought those people in. Maybe affirmative action. But that only existed because they weren't allowing blacks to go to certain schools. They weren't allowing blacks to go to Harvard, Yale, University, things like that. And they opened up a line for blacks to be able to have the ability to go there. But they're hiding it in everything they're hiding it in. And this is great. I mean, this is time for, I love that black people aren't standing up saying anything. Let things be. So we can see who really rocks with us or not. Now we'll see in this comment section too. All right, peace.